Does creative work really have to be painful? Can you actually get twice the output in half the time? This is Love Your Work, and I'm David Cadavy. I'm here to help you make your masterpiece. You've heard that multitasking is a myth. I'm here to tell you that the idea that multitasking is a myth is somewhat of a myth in itself. When it comes to creative work, you can actually work on two projects at once. The trick is, you don't even know you're working on that second project. And one great way to get more done is to save yourself a trip to the post office. You can stay at your desk or at a cafe if you wish, and some magical clone of yourself gets postage for you. If you listen to podcasts, you probably have heard enough ads for Stamps.com. Well, this is not an ad for Stamps.com. I'm talking about SendPro from Pitney Bowes. With SendPro, you can compare prices from different carriers and buy postage straight from your browser. No special equipment required, no special software required, and SendPro has 3 times the features of Stamps.com for 1/3 the price. It has a really slick interface too. You got to check it out. Visit pb.com/loveyourwork. Try it free for 90 days. That's PB as in peanut butter or Pitney Bowes. pb.com/loveyourwork. I've just added a new membership level of Love Your Work Elite. Attend monthly office hours hangouts with me and others, and get a bonus mastermind class where I talk to Noah Kagan about the specific tactics he used to add tens of thousands of leads to his email list.
I think a lot of new people don't really have frameworks or concepts about how to do their marketing. Here's a very simple way of doing it. Like, how much is it costing you to get an email subscriber, right? So let's say for this instance, like my time is worth $10 or $50 an hour. It's 4 weeks. So here's my cost. That's my cost. And I get, 10,000 subscribers. So what you need to understand is, like, how are you prioritizing the different activities you could be doing based on the cost you're expecting for different people to sign up?
Learn more about Love Your Work Elite and join at lywelite.com. That's lywelite.com. Here's the article. The alternating incubation method of getting art done. Incubation is critical to achieving creative insights. When you aren't consciously working on a creative problem, your unconscious mental processes are working on the problem. Numerous studies have demonstrated that incubation periods improve creative problem solving. But when you need to create multiple smaller pieces in a short amount of time, you can use the alternating incubation method. Imagine you need to write an article and an intro script for a podcast episode, all within 2 hours. Your session might look something like this. And there's a table here showing that there are different 15-minute increments, and there's conscious and unconscious mental resources. So the first 15 minutes, you're brainstorming the article. Then the second 15 minutes, you're brainstorming the podcast intro. That's what you're doing with your conscious mind. Now, your unconscious mind is then incubating the article that you brainstormed prior, and you alternate all through brainstorming, draft, polishing, and finalizing, all the while switching between the two articles so that your unconscious mind can incubate on what it worked on consciously prior. Here's how it works. The different phases of the two projects are alternated, which allows for unconscious incubation of one project while working on another. When returning to a project, the incubation period should have made it easier to solve any problems you might have encountered in the previous session. The progression of activities from brainstorming to drafting, polishing, and finalizing allows for mental warm-up throughout the session. The progression of activities avoids costly mind state switching. Instead of having to go straight from proofreading an article, which requires attention to detail, to brainstorming a podcast intro, which requires expansive thinking, activities are grouped together by mind state. While this session plan could be taken literally, there are a few things to keep in mind. Creative projects are rarely so linear. Sometimes pieces of completed prose come to you, sometimes in outline structure. Your creative momentum is more important than following a rigid structure. Depending upon your skill level and the creative complexity of the deliverable, you may be able to switch more nimbly between stages of a project. You may brainstorm, draft, and polish all in one go, though it's likely you'll benefit from the incubation session before finalization. This session is 2 hours, but the breaking up of these phases of projects could span an entire day, multiple days, or weeks or months. The more daunting the creative challenge, the more you'll benefit from extended incubation periods. Pay attention to the mental effort it takes to make it through the various phases of a creative project. Also notice how incubation periods make it easier to bust through creative blocks. Arrange your work accordingly, and you can do more work and better work in a shorter amount of time. I hope that article helps you put even more of your work into the world. To learn more about making the most of your mental energy in creative work, listen to episode 8 with John Cunhos. Dr. Cunhos is a neuroscientist studying the nature of insight.
Sleep is not doing nothing. Sleep is mental work. Sleep is creative work. Your brain is churning over memories. It's clearing out the mental cobwebs. It's generating ideas. Sleep is itself work. So if a person's trying to solve a problem and they take a nap to sleep on it, that's not working on the problem. That is working on the problem.
Again, John Cunhos is on episode 8. And I talk about self-motivation with Dan Ariely on episode 51.
If you think that you have 2 hours of productive hours a day, and on each of those hours you can produce 2.5 times to 3 times more than on these hours after lunch, every minute you waste of those 2 hours is a waste.
Again, Dan Ariely is on episode 51. And if you appreciate all the work that goes into making this show, there are a couple of ways you can help support it. One is to subscribe, whether it is on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just hit the subscribe button. Another is to rate the show. On Overcast, it's really easy. Just tap the star icon on this episode. On Apple Podcasts, just go to cadavy.net/Apple, click on write a review, and click on the star rating. You don't even have to write a review. It really just takes a couple of seconds. You can also join Love Your Work Elite. You'll get access to episodes before everyone else. You can even get ad-free interviews weeks in advance, and you can get your name or business mentioned in the credits of the show. For details, go to cadavy.net/elite. That's cadavy.net/elite. Love Your Work is brought to you in part by top Love Your Work Elite members such as Arif Akhtar. This has been Love Your Work, and I'm David Cadavy. The theme music for this show is More Streets, performed by Spiderflower. Love Your Work is a production of Cadavy, Inc.